Yeah, so should we start, Gaurav?
Yep.
Yeah, so hello everyone, welcome to today's Meshery development meeting. And as our tradition goes off, we start with the introduction of some newcomers joining the call for the first time. So uh, I'm just looking out for someone who has joined the call for the first time. But if you are joining this call for the first time, please feel free to unmute your mic and uh, and just speak to it.
Hello, myself Shivam, and I've joined this call for the first time.
Okay. Uh, Tell us a bit about yourself, like what you do
I am
these
a
days.
second year college student and I am pursuing BTech in CS. And currently, my tech stack is MERN stack, and I want to learn something new here, like meet new
Uh,
people and
that's great, Shwin. Thanks for joining. Yeah, you'll see some, you'll get to learn a lot. Moving ahead, Deep, is it your first time on this call? Or have you joined it in?
Yes, it is. It's my first time.
Uh, how are you, Deep? Would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Deep, currently pursuing bachelor's in computer science. Currently in my third year and want to learn about more about DevOps. So
Uh,
here to learn about Kubernetes.
Great, Deep. Thanks for joining. Yeah, you'll learn Kubernetes a lot since it is very much tightly related to Kubernetes, as well as it is also expanding to whole Kubernetes applications and infrastructure. So thanks for joining. Friedish, if I'm pronouncing your name correct, is it your first time on this call?
Hey, hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, it's actually my first time in this call, yeah. So, a full stack developer, I'm currently learning Go, and yeah, actually I'm currently looking also to find a good first issue that I can tackle with this project. All right.
Okay. You are not assigned to any, or you couldn't find it just yet, right?
You said?
You couldn't find a good first issue just yet. Okay,
Yeah.
I think
For now, it seems like most of the first issue are already taken. So, yeah.
yeah, if Ashish, you are taking a note, if there are some good first issues that you can open, like please do.
All right.
Thanks for joining.
Sure.
Ike, I couldn't actually get your name correctly, so I would like it is our first time on this call, right? Ike Kanyemi, yeah. If sorry for the pronunciation.
Yeah, you can just keep it simple. Yemi. You can
Yeah.
just Yemi. Yeah. So I'm a final year student studying pure and applied mathematics, and I'll be doing Golang for a year plus now, and directly doing backend or software development, backend specific, and there's this tendency of of or trying to understand how the backend orchestration works with Kubernetes, and also make myself visible in the open source community. So I think the layer 5 ties all these things together. So it's an honor to be in the community, right? And grow my visibility, and as well learn from the senior engineers and the senior guys in the community, in the open source environment, the open source world, and as well in the layer 5 community.
That's great, Yemi. Yeah, so I think you're pretty much experienced in your backend journey, and yeah, good place to hang out. I think you can also pair with Ashish, who is mostly active in designing API and infrastructure, and mostly yeah, he's indulged in backend, and he's one of the senior here, like he can be called. So yeah, I think you could pair up well with him.
Sorry,
And
what's the name again? The name, the name.
Ashish Tiwari, he goes by this name, Mr. Tiwari. Yeah.
Okay.
So I hope everyone is covered. Like if someone else whom I missed is joining this call for the first time, like they can just
Yeah, actually. Hello. Am I audible?
yes, Shibu.
Yeah, so my name is Shivam. So recently I joined Layer 5 community. So I came from non-IT background, so I want to switch my career into tech. So I learned full stack, and currently I am looking forward to learn about DevOps. And so I joined open source community like Layer 5. And recently, like today, I solved one issue about that's it.
Okay, that's great, Shibu. Thanks for
Yes.
joining. Okay, is there someone else?
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
I'm just getting
go ahead.
a chuckle because we just said, "Hey, Avi, you want to host today? Okay, go, start." And then like usual, there's a number of newcomers on the call. Always super happy to meet newcomers because we get really tired of some of the old timers here. They get always nice to just meet new people, and the old timers already know how to put up with bad jokes, so we're okay, I think. But I guess I wanted to ask real briefly. There's a couple of you that don't have your last name in the Zoom participants list. Call us crazy, but we like to get to know everybody and make sure everybody gets well represented. And that was actually one of the things that Ike Hakanyemi had mentioned. Was visibility. That's certainly one of the things we try to do actually maybe Gaurav will speak to some of that about visibility of members here and just the activities that they do and how meaningful those are to us. It might be cliche at this point, but it probably doesn't hurt to say those activities that you all do, many of them are non-code related. And those we pay a lot of attention to all of them. So anyway, it's great to have some of the newcomers. Deep, can you take a moment, and Harsh, can you guys take a moment, drop your last names into the Zoom participants list, if you would? And then Ike Hakanyemi, is that your first name? And am I slaughtering it?
Okay, so it's two names joined together. So it's Ike Akinyemi, right? And you can just call me Yemi, like Y-E-M-I, Yemi for short.
Nice. Okay, Y-E-M-I, yeah. And okay, good. And then now, just to be on record, is Ike? No, not Ike, but say the first part of your
Ike.
It's not Ike. Yeah, sorry. Is Ike your first name then, or no?
Yes. First name, no.
No. Okay. Oh, okay. I see. Okay, got you.
Ike is
Anyway,
the last name. Ike is the last name. My surname,
Cool.
last name. Yeah.
Cool. But you go by Yemi anyway. So, all right, great. That's great. Man, that's so much easier for 4 little letters. Okay, thanks.
Right.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I realize, with as many newcomers as we have, and as much as Lee won't shut up on the calls, we kind of take a little while to get into some of there's a lot of topics to go through today, which is really nice. I wanted to take a moment to recognize that we haven't been doing our general community meeting for a while. Consequently, part of that community, part of recognizing those that are in the community and having discussions about projects outside of Meshery, of which there are quite a few. We don't always have, we're sort of missing a spot for that. So I guess I just wanted to vocalize that out loud and maybe help hold us accountable to trying to establish maybe a monthly community meeting. There's a lot of works of different people that we want to recognize. There's other tech that we want to dig into. Things like Polak is here. He's starting to dig into what it might mean to integrate open policy agent into Meshery. And I don't know if you're like me, but there's a lot that I can learn about Rego and open policy agent just as a general piece of tech. And so maybe a short presentation on that, or just a short, like a deep dive into that area might be nice. But to have a separate venue for that is quite appropriate. So, well, there you go. I guess we have our first agenda for maybe an upcoming community meeting. Polak, that's something for you to give consideration to. That would just happen to be a random thought, but yeah, good. Anyway, we should do those. Did we miss anybody? I totally interrupted and I didn't. Did we miss anybody that wanted to say hi that didn't get a chance? Deep, I'll send you a screenshot of how you can rename yourself and Zoom, or we'll exit you from the call so you can return with a last name. Shivam and Sonali, will you, the two of you, please do that as well? I will be a stickler on this point.
What'd you say?
Anyway, yeah, can you add your last name to Zoom chat participants list, please?
Okay.
Pretty please with sugar on top before I reach for the eject button. Anyway, I'm kidding. Back to you, Abhi.
Okay, so since we are mostly covered, we can move to the agenda items. And first item is by Azan. Azan, would you like to share?
Yeah, hi. So I won't be sharing my screen because the computer basically doesn't work. But yeah, so we had our discussion, me and Ashish, and according to both consensus, like I have removed all the Meshery CTL copy pasted code from there and used the Docker SDK to deploy and deploy. The Docker part is done, deploy and deploy both Docker is working. I'll share the screen recording of the same, because like if I share screen, then my server basically stops working. So that part is done, and the persistence for this adapters deploying and deploying from Meshery server won't be the same as deploying and deploying from Meshery CTL, which happens with the config.yml. We'll be tracking that differently with our adapter tracker in the server. And one more thing is that we'll keep a list of supported adapters. Like previously, we didn't used to assume anything about the adapters, like anyone can add any kind of adapter. Currently, we'll add a list of adapters that are supported to be deployed and undeployed from the server itself, so that we can list them out in the UI and the user can do that. That's the update.
Thanks for the update. Any comments on the update?
Oh, since you can't share your screen, maybe just a screenshot as a separate item. Did you say that you were done, Azan, or that was?
No, like the Docker part is done. Like we discussed that there are 4 parts, right? Docker deploy, Docker and deploy, Kubernetes deploy, Kubernetes and deploy. So Docker deploy and deploy is working. Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Kubernetes, like I'm working on that.
Thanks. Nice. Anybody have any questions for Azan? Like, I think he has a hyperlink that he'll add to the meeting minutes, pointing to the issue that he's working through. When users come use Meshery, they by default there's a default, or there's an implicit profile for Meshery, which means that you'll get Meshery server and Meshery UI in a single container. And if you're not paying attention, by default, you'll get a number of other containers, other Meshery adapters. And Azan is working to make it easy for users to pick and choose which adapters they want to actually have loaded. So, but there's an issue number that he'll add so you can go track his work. It's always nice to give feedback. Sudhanshu.
Yeah, like I just skipped this what Alan told actually.
Nice. Did you were just saying you need a moment, maybe come back to you. Is that what you said?
Okay, my agenda items.
Oh yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, right now.
Are you sharing your screen?
Yeah. Yeah, so my PR consists of some smaller bug issues related to alignment of table across the Meshery docs. Earlier it was not aligned properly, like here it is. So there is I've done the alignment of every table items, and there are some light mode, dark mode bug fixes. Like here, it was actually not properly have a light mode one. So that has been fixed, and yeah, this was like smaller bug fixes in Meshery docs. Second item I have is like whenever we go to this sidebar menu in Meshery docs, we don't have any active over tab, because if we, like example, we go to app mesh, we are just over again to the initial phase of the sidebar. So we want an active button, active links that can show that we are in this particular page and page. So anybody it's a nice good first issue to work on Jekyll and framework. So if anyone has an want to try hands on this issue, can like put their hands on in this meeting, or I will create an issue in the GitHub. They can also assign in there. Yeah.
Thanks for the update, Sudhanshu. Moving on to the next item by Gaurav. You would be showing some community health report.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. Okay, cool. So today we are having last Meshery meeting for the month of March, and it's time to do a community health report check for the month of March. Let me just make it to full screen. So for the month of March, I had gathered a couple of updates related to community and Meshery project. So we had 85,000 plus performance tests run using Meshery, and for top contributors we have Pranav Singh and Vivek Vishal, who contributed to the Meshery project. The contribution involves PRs, issues, and reviewing them. So we are also doing pretty well with social media handles. On LinkedIn, we have about 5,400 followers for layer 5 and 2,400 followers for Meshery and 1,200 followers for SMP. And similarly for Twitter as well as on GitHub, we are just require 50 more stars to hit 2,000 stars on Meshery repository. So if you haven't started Meshery repository yet, go and give a star to it. And talking about Meshery user signups, so lots of users, contributors, and people have been signing up for Meshery. So we had about 3,000 user signups and 250 in last 2 months. And talking about Docker extension, so we have a Docker extension for Meshery. If you haven't tried yet, go give it a try. So we had about 50,000 Docker pulls in just last 2 months. So we are doing pretty good with these stats. So let's next talk about Discuss forum. So we have a community Discuss forum, discuss.layer5.io. If you haven't have an account there, go sign up for that. I'll share the link of Discuss forum in chat. So on Discuss, we have 120 signups from users, and there were 30 new contributors for the month of March and 130 posts that were created. And we have about 8 daily users, which is pretty low. So we definitely need to work on that. And okay, that's a repeat. 130 new posts were created, and 15 solutions were marked as accepted. So if you are reviewing any of the posts, feel free to mark them as a solution if you have a solution for that. And we had 80 new likes, and monthly active users are pretty less for the month of March, 10%. So definitely we need to work on that. And the trending search term for the month of March is meshmates. So people are looking for meshmates. So if you want to know who are meshmates, how you can connect with them, feel free to jump on Layer 5's newcomers call. That's on Thursday. And for the month of March, we have top contributors by likes received are Meshmate Yash Sharma and Manish Tyagi. So they have been contributing actively on Discuss Forum. So these were pretty much stats for the month of March. And for the next month, I will be coming up with more and more exciting stats. So yep, that was 2 quick slides and a community health report for the month of March from me.
Thanks, Gaurav. Yeah, it was pretty much exciting. So I hope it excites everyone else in the call, on the call. So yeah, we'll be moving to April. That definitely shows
it does for me. Like that's awesome. This is the first time I think we've had that discussion forum for about a year or so. Contributors in the websites call that we have on Mondays, they created the discussion forum. And it's, well, I shouldn't say created, that maybe that they took a copy of Discourse, the open source discussion board, and deployed it into some AWS infrastructure. They restyled it. But we've only made it so far in terms of this is the first time that we've talking about the number of solutions that have been provided, or this is the first time we're really talking about some of the stats from here. And hopefully we would do that maybe once a month as you go to share a community report like that. We'll have to recognize some folks who are being active there, whether they're answering questions or asking questions. I think actually both count equally as well. I'd hoped Manish might present something like this, but Manish, we just didn't get there, I suppose. Anyway, good, very nice to see. There's an open issue actually, and an open design, UI design for creating integrations, creating a leaderboard for most active user for the month, or maybe most the solutions leader for the month. So anyway, if web programming is your thing, that leaderboard would be fantastic. It'd be nice to elevate people. I'll drop it, if you're interested, I'll drop a link to where you can find the design. So, cool, that's exciting.
Yep. Thanks, Lee and Gaurav. Let's move to the next item. Ayush, you're there.
Yeah, sharing screen. So this issue was discussed in the last call, which was regarding saved nil checks in Meshery server handlers. So if you look in the remote provider.go file, there are several like if you look at this line, there's a request made to the remote provider, and then there is an error check. So basically, for this error check, if you see it checks if error is not equal to, and then all things are basically an error statement which contains the response.status code. But the problem with this statement is that in some cases the response itself can be nil, and so this will create an issue. So I created a PR for this, which basically adds this statement inside this error, checks for response to be nil, and it returns. So if response is nil, it will return this error, which is a meshkit error. So I've done this across whole remote.voido file. And currently some tests is failing. I think it's the Meshery server backend test. After so else this, and after that this can be merged. There were some suggestions by Ashish and Pranav on this, and I have fixed those. So just the test needs to be fixed, and then after this can be merged. So yeah, that's it from my side. Thank you.
Yeah, by the way, I had suggested to put the if blocks that you have added, I had suggested after the, not with the error nil check, after that. So you do both the checks. So for example, it can be also the case that error is actually nil, but the response is also nil. So checking both of those separately, not like, yeah. So just take that response, like this response nil check should be after the error nil check.
So you mean this should be in a separate, this should be whole separate, not nested inside this.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now.
Thanks, Ayush. Let's move to the next item by Harkirat about rjsf update and some code cleanup.
Yeah, so my PR was about on the last code I discussed like some of the issues that I means created on the RGSF side were fixed by them, and corresponding to that, I created a fix into our own Meshery where we are how we are using Meshery RGSF form. So that triggered a lot of code removal kind of refactoring. And I recently pulled out a new issue as well where I was feeling like this can be done, and yeah, they added this as well, and thanks to them. And once they create the release, I would also corresponding to that I will also create a yes, corresponding and also trigger the code removal in the RJSF. And that's pretty much about RJSF, some kind of refactoring going around. Which, yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Harkirat. So, okay, you got the response from the community and they have fixed the
Yeah, they fix it.
yeah, the question that you had, and they have the answers right. Yeah, so thanks for making the changes in our code. Let's move to the next item by Antonette. Antonette, would you like to share your screen?
Sure. So I'm just going to show the open PR that I have on a couple of the components that I added. Just so that you can get an idea. Let's see. Okay, so on the open PR that I have, I created two different stories, one for app bar and one for chip, just to kind of, give you an idea of what to look for whenever you create a story and you're just trying to test out a particular component or create a, a form or whatever it is. But since we're using MUI and I went into some problem trying to connect Material UI version 4. I'm not sure what happened, but it led me to use the version 5, but it's still some of the placement is still, still roughly the same. The only difference is the instead of using the make styles, you're just using the style component. So here is, we already have the buttons that's already been added. So here's the one for the tip and for the header itself. These first two are copied directly from Material UI. but the last one I have for the Meshery header is something similar to what we already have. Some of it that I could add, but I have to add some mock-up so that we can kind of replicate or get something close to what we already have locally until I can figure out how to add Reduct to the storybook. Since we are using the older, we are using Reduct itself, and since there's a toolkit that is out and they're recommending to use that, it's a lot of the changes that need to be done before we can start using it. However, you can still wire Storybook up with Reduct with the new toolkit, but the problem here is you can either add it as a global thing or you can add it for one particular page, but then you have to create like a dummy store. And so I'm trying to find the happy medium. But anyway, so
And
PRD2, yes.
yeah, would you like to tell the attendees on the call that how it would help in our current code base, like how the concept of storybook would help us, like why we are making this effort?
Yes. So one of the reasons for doing this is so that we can have something separate from the directory itself, so that whenever we want to create a new component, or in this case, we're creating a story and we want to say, hey, this particular story, we want to create a form or a header or just a button, just making sure that it can work outside of what you currently have. Now, we're already doing that within UI, but this will kind of separate when it comes to testing, and so that you don't have to introduce some potential, well, we're always going to introduce, potential new bugs, and then we'll try to fix it as soon as possible. But at least in this case, we're separating the testing part and have it done in Storybook. So, so on here, whenever you want to create a new story, you just have to call each of the file that you want to create a component for, or recreate what we already have, and you just name it for what it is. And as long as you have the stories in that particular extension file, then Storybook will automatically pick that up, and it will show it as one of these pages. So that's really, for just to get started, that's pretty much it. Now it can get a little bit you kind of have to play around a little bit to make sure that it shows up correctly. But once you get the page to show up and how you want it to go from there, then after that it's pretty much easy. But you don't have to define the actual component. You don't have to. But if you want to create your own custom, so that you can kind of create your own custom move button or move tip, or however you want to define it, just a little bit different from what Material UI is doing, and you can create your own. But here is just an example of just taking what Movie already has, and then you just kind of fill in some of the pop, and then you use the story, and then you import that from that file. But if you don't want to do that, or you want to try to learn how to use Storybook, you can call the movie directly and then just create the component that you want to create. So. Anybody have any questions?
So are we going to write all the components that we use here in a separate file?
Yeah, I started off with,
is there any scope of reusability just in case?
I'm sorry?
Like whatever is already written in the code, like it can be copy pasted or just refer to the file with a symlink, or just asking for the reusability factor if we can introduce in,
yeah,
so that we can just speed up the things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can just copy and paste, but the only difference here, yes, you can, whatever that we make in the storybook and we test it out and it worked correctly, however you want to look at it, you can take that and then just bring it in through UE itself. The only difference now is that since we're still using material version 4, and this is version 5, it would just require making some changes here and there, but we'll get there one step at a time. So, and some of it is really not that much difference, really. It's just changing the import. The only difference at the end would be the styling. So.
Okay, yeah, I got you. Got you. There is some kind of incompatibility right now with the styles in V4, V5, right?
Yeah, I
Okay.
have the styles created in the folder here. So anything that is storybook related, you can just put it within the stories folder so that we all know this is specific for that and it won't make any drastic changes to what we already do in UE. And so if you want to create new themes, if you want to create new components, or whenever we get to the point where we can wire up Storybook to what we already have in UE itself, we can import one of the pages from UE, and you can just check to see how it looks from there. So, but until I get that fit, then we'll just be creating a custom component. Since we already have some of them from Meshery Cloud, since we're already using Movie version 5, so some of that can help in this part as well.
What's Yuri?
In Meshery?
Yeah. I know it sounds weird. I seriously have a hard time. Whenever you say MUI, it takes me a moment to get that. Yeah, it's Material UI but what's Yuri?
Yuri, the directory in Meshery. Sorry. Because I have the storybook, there's only 2 directories, stories and the .storybook. So if you make any changes in there, it would just be for storybook itself. It won't make any changes to
no, it's okay. That's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm asking. I'm the word Yuri.
I think you lost me because I'm trying to replay back what I said, but I don't think I.
No. It's just yeah.
Maybe I'll just say Material Yuri instead of movie. Sorry.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, I get MUI now. It's still a little hard for me, but I get but you're saying a different one though too, right? You say MUI and.
Yeah, I was saying MUI, but I was also referring to Yuri as a directory. Yes.
I think she meant UI.
UI. Okay.
I wasn't. I don't think what I was talking about was referring to user interface. I don't think I was saying that. I was saying more the directory, but
UI.
Okay.
So okay.
Yeah. Anyway, the main dashboard. So any changes that you make within the dashboard, it'll be fine. But if you make any changes in Storybook, that's just Storybook itself. It's pretty much easy. It's only one command. All you have to do is one npm one Storybook, and then we'll open up a page for you, and then you can just look at the components and stuff. So as you can already see, there are a couple that I'm trying to replicate a little bit close to what we already have. This one still needs some changes because I know it's supposed to be the icon with the 0 up on the top. But yeah, anyway. That's it for me. Anybody have any questions?
It's really exciting.
And don't forget, anybody would like to make changes to it, whatever.
Actually, you mentioned you were having problems with using Storybook with Redux Toolkit.
So the problem here is that go ahead.
No, continue.
The problem here is that the problem here is that since with Redux, we're using the older version of Redux. Redux have changed to use the Redux JS toolkit, but I could pull in the current store that we have, but it even though Redux claimed that you can use the legacy and you can still use the original store, the storybook acts funny when you try to pull in that store. So now you have to create this whole nother wrapper in storybook so that you can either do it
Okay,
as a global or for the story. But we'll get
and
all into that later. Yeah.
Antonette, we can we just upgrade Redux store if it is a problem?
Can I create a Redux store?
No, update the package.
Yeah, no, we can, but it just you also have we also have another package, the Next Redux wrapper, that also needs to be upgraded too. And we're using version 3 and they're on version 8. And version 8 is using the Redux JS toolkit. So while we could do it, but it will require a lot of changes on almost all the files that use the Redux. So I have a list, but I don't have all of the files that would be affected yet. So once I make the changes on the open issue that I have, then everybody will know what needs to be changed from there. So,
Yeah, please create an issue for it. Uh, it's way back. I think the difference between 3 and 8 is like large. So we should be using latest at least in that term. And it is I don't think V4 or V5 support for from MUI is anyway holding us back in that area. I think we can definitely work in that area if the changes are I don't think like there will be any drastic change or in the code base, but let's see like yeah what it takes.
okay.
So moving to the next item, thanks Antonette. Ashish, would you like to demo yeah already?
Okay, so recently we were having a conversation around last week to Ala about about adding Meshery Playground, and he was going through a bunch of bugs. And one of the bugs that he had pointed out was that the enum fields that we have, so like these fields like image pull policy. So before I talk about this, just a little bit of context is that a lot of fields that you would see in a typical RJSF form would be I should say these fields would be prettified so that these are easier on the user's eyes. So for example, set host name as FQDN. If this was not spaced out, then people would have had a hard time reading this thing. And this is true for almost all the fields except for the end user field. So for example, if not present is an end user input. And users, when you write out YAML, you actually specify it if not present or always or never. So what we were doing was we were spacing out these things. We were prettifying these things as well. So Kubernetes wasn't identifying these. So I modified the prettifier logic and I've added the comments over here to lay out the logic and principle for prettification and deprettification. I'll create a PR in which you can read it, but the general rule of thumb is to never prettify or deprettify anything that is user end thing. So this is a simple nginx pod. If I try to deploy it, I'll go to the deploy button and it will check for deployment errors. It will dry run it basically. And I got no errors back. It means it's safe to deploy. So in my playground environment, I can go ahead and deploy this nginx pod. This design has only one pod. So it says the pod was deployed. This design was deployed. So it means that this thing is working right now. So I haven't created a pull request for this thing, but yeah, I'd be doing this after the call. So after this, we shouldn't be running into any of these prettification bugs because we will be going by the rule that we wouldn't be modifying from our side anything that is subjected to user input like these enum fields. So yeah, this is a small update from my side. Does anyone have any questions regarding this thing, or should I stop sharing my screen?
Thanks, Ashish. Moving to the next item by Yash. So he has fixed some dark mode issues in Meshery UI, and he will be talking about it.
Sure. Let me share my screen. Okay, so as we know, in Meshery, we recently got the dark mode. So we were having the thoughts that we should make the dark mode as a default. But before that, in Meshery, there are still some issues that need to be fixed as a dark mode. There are some components that still does not support as a dark mode, some small issues. So in this PR, I have fixed some of them. Okay, so there is also call for some of volunteers that if you are new to this call and if you are looking for the contribution, a dark mode issues can be the good first start for you. So for that, you can give yourself a tour to the Meshery. As I'm running this in my local environment, you can give yourself a tour to the Meshery and check if there is any issue related to dark mode. If there is any, you can raise an issue and you can start working on that. If you found any problem having with the dark mode, you can also ping me on the Slack or in the public channel. Also, there is one more thing. In the Meshery settings, in the mesh model summary, there is a need of enhancement in the UI. So if Lee, you can explain what should be the expected behavior of the UI here, that would be helpful.
Yeah, gosh, it could be a bunch of things. I think I'm going to say a number of things and sort of all of the above is needed. Is Gurpreet on the call? Oh, he is. All right. So Gurpreet, and then a couple of other people were looking for things to do inside of Meshery UI. And I'll tell you this, Antonette is helping us, well, not just with what she just showed, but also with her prior work on what it would take to get to Material UI 5 is something of a rewrite of the UI. And we need to have a strong and consistent UI contributor base before we can really take on something so large. So in the meantime, she's helping us componentize, which will have the effect of helping us get a theme going and like get some of the proper tooling in place. And so I digress to say that there's a ton of work to be done in Material UI. I'm not in Material, in Meshery UI. Now, Antonette's having a chuckle at me now. There's a ton of work to be done here in this portion of the project. One of the items is this, well, what's being currently referred to as mesh model summary, which is probably an accurate description. I think Pollock actually might have is working on a small item here. And then maybe he can give an update as soon as I stop rambling here. And that's to say that there are, as Meshery manages infrastructure, it models the infrastructure that it manages in this, in mesh model, just in this object model. And the object model itself is quite simple, or there's only a few constructs. And some of them you can see in the dropdown right there. It's called components. There's different components. And if Yash or whomever is sharing were to do me a favor and click that dropdown, you'd see components. You might see relationships. How are the components related? Great. There's another construct inside of mesh model. It's called a model. And when, as a user or as an administrator of Meshery, if you've installed Meshery, you can go to its system settings, take a look at its health, take a look at what it's connected to, different Kubernetes environments or different Meshery adapters, different metrics that it's pulling, a lot of these things. You can also look at, or in a very nascent way on mesh model summary, you can look at the particular type of infrastructure that Meshery understands that it has a model for. And so Chaos Mesh is right here at the top. It's a CNCF project. I reviewed and approved it coming into the CNCF about 1.5 years ago. Nice folks. A lot of them are in our Slack, actually, just randomly. Speaking of which, Meshery, we have a Mesh Monkey project that's related to things that we want to do with chaos. So there's a lot of stuff to do around here. Anyway, this interface begins to answer the question of what specific type of infrastructure Meshery is cognizant of. Like, what specific type of infrastructure is Meshery capable of managing in a very granular way? In a very granular way, it can manage chaos mesh. And it looks like, at least from what I'm reading here, that there are two different chaos mesh components. So in this UI, in the drop-down list, there's only components and relationships. We're missing models. So that's something that needs to be added. But, you know, so more than that, there's a bunch of ways to, basically, there's a database inside of Meshery that it would be wonderful if we just exposed here in the UI, just a database viewer, essentially, or like there's like 3 or 4 tables we just want to go have a view of. It's very helpful to confirm, like, oh, okay, yes, the Argo CD components are loaded here. Good, Meshery should be able to identify Argo CD, help manage Argo CD. And so that's the part of the function of this utility, is to help users of Meshery understand what Meshery is capable of managing. So ideally, so there's a bunch of ways to make this helpful. So if that number 2 there is like, okay, 2 components for what I assume is the chaos mesh model. Well, what are those 2 components? It'd be nice if we could either click that, like click the row and expand it and show the 2 components, or the UI doesn't have to be terribly clever. Each of those components, they are described in JSON or and so sometimes we're having an issue with how Meshery manages chaos mesh or one of these things. And it's really helpful to understand the particulars, to be able to open up that JSON and just review how it is that Meshery is managing chaos mesh or any of these. So not only would it be nice to have like a table and table here to be able to click on a row and show you the detail, like the names of the 2 chaos mesh components, but then also to be able to click on an individual component and maybe have it show its raw JSON. There's a mesh model API, which is documented in the REST API reference in Meshery docs, only so well. Ashish is working to improve the accuracy and consistency and the examples in those docs. He could use some help for the gophers on the call. Sonali and Vivek are working on, and actually, if you don't mind, if you just go to docs.meshery.io so people know what I'm talking about, there's a REST API reference that Sonali and Noreen and Vivek are working on improving the legibility of and the navigatability of. I think that's a word, navigatability. Let's just pretend that it is. It's in the center of your screen. There's 3 green bars. One of them says reference. The 3rd bullet down, maybe. So on the right-hand side, the bottom bullet on the right-hand side. Good. Who is driving? It's not, yeah. Right-hand side, bottom bullet. REST API reference. Well, yeah, oh, very good. Good. And so folks are working to improve this reference. The reason, if you scroll down, please, the reason I'm calling out this reference is because there's a REST API for mesh model. So you can go get the mesh model components, the mesh model models, the mesh model relationships, and you can use this API reference to do so. So, did I come close to providing any insight or guide, a little bit of a vision as to what's needed. So like egregiously, we're missing models. It's a core construct to mesh model, and I don't see it. It's confusing to me how that's exposed. The count of each, like of those, that count, I'm not really clear if that's the component count or that's the model count, but either way, it's great to have that count. There's a, so, yep. I'll stop.
Thanks, Lee, for sharing and explaining. Yeah, that's all update from my side.
Okay.
Sorry. Wait. Yash, sorry. For real, did that help you at all? Like, was it just too long and rambling, or should I just said like, put it? And are you going to be working on that, or are you just asking for other people, or?
Actually, I am asking for volunteers.
Oh, I see. Okay. Any volunteers? Gurpreet, are you on this? Pulak, do you want to give your update?
Sure, I can help with that. I can ping Yash and we can work together.
Nice.
Sure. Thanks, Wesley.
Pulak, I almost use all the time. Do you want to give your update?
Yeah, I can, I think.
All right.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen. Oh. Oh, I'm having issue with sharing my screen. Let me check. Guys, I think another one can go. I think I have some issue with sharing my screen. I'm trying to fix it. So once I fixed, I can ping. Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah, we're actually out of time. So did we miss anything critical? Or does anybody have any follow-up items maybe that they want to discuss? Maybe we could, like, if you guys want to continue discussing stuff, you could leave the call open. Yash and Gurpreet could continue the discussion if they wanted to or something, but Abhi, Gaurav, do we miss anything?
Or I can just or someone please can you please open just the previous window or screen that showing the mesh model summary part, then I can I have some questions, so I can go through.
Okay, I can share.
Okay, thank you. Actually, I'm on Fedora, so suddenly I face screen sharing issue in Zoom. So maybe new, yeah, this one, yeah. So I dig down on the code. If you go down, then I have one comment that try to find out that from where this mesh model API coming from or implemented, and scroll up a bit. Yeah, scroll bit up. Yeah, this one I would like to work on this, and then the later one, then there is a reference. So I actually try to understand. I found that currently in the mesh model summary, this is it stands for the number of versions, and it is coming from a specific part of that code, but I try to dig deep on the code part, and I think so as the bug mentioned, so currently are we trying to add one more column for the number of components installed? Let's say currently it showed that weird number for Istio, that I have installed the Meshery in my kind cluster using Helm chart, and it's showing that the count for Istio is 100. That is I don't know that what that 100 means. So if we want that, if we want another column here to show the number of number of, let's say, Istio installed in the Kubernetes cluster, or just to modify the existing column that we have already here to show a different number, or let's say the number of installed Istio in the cluster. Is it clear?
Sorry, for my part, I have to admit, being focused elsewhere. But how is it that we're talking about, Kubernetes clusters? How does that?
Yeah. I said that I have installed Meshery using Helm chart in our local client cluster, and when I port forward that Meshery, then I can find out that in the Meshery summary, it is showing that for the Istio count is 100. So it is coming from the number of version installed of Istio, right?
Say that last part again. It is coming from the number of something installed Istio.
Yeah. I think that currently the count column is showing the. Can you please go to the reference here? So it is actually this one. It is actually a reference of the code that the number of version. That is the part coming from the mesh model component. So when I installed Meshery in my local client cluster, I saw that it showed the count 100 for Istio. So are we try to modify that count and want to show? Let's say I have 2 Istio custom resources installed in my client cluster. Then the count should be 2. Or we want to add one more column for that reference.
Got you. Yeah, great question. I get your question. Yeah, that's a good. I don't know why we're counting the number of versions here on line 121.
Yeah.
That's but then no, to your answer, Paul, no, not quite. Meshery will model each of the resources, each of the Kubernetes objects. And so that 100 count, if it's for components, it should be just for the number of a component, like a pod, a deployment, service. And so as it models each of those different resources, it should be that the component count is a count of each of those resources. So I listed off 3 or 4, so that would be like 4 components. And so Meshery ships with some components built in about Kubernetes. And then if you connect it to a Kubernetes, it will dynamically generate more components based on the Kubernetes that it connects to. And so, yep. So if you connect more and more Kubernetes, the number might grow a bit. Some of those components would just be duplicative. It might model a pod more than once. And that's a whole separate discussion about why it does that. But does that help?
Yeah. So to be more specific, or that means let's say I have 3 deployment in my cluster. So the count should be 3 for deployment, right? So then in terms of Istio, let's say I have 3 custom resource installed in my cluster. So nope. The count should be 3, right?
No.
Is it?
I mean, kind of, but no, it wouldn't just be custom resources. It would be all the standard resources from Kubernetes as well. Pulak, we're out of time.
Okay.
But Pranav or Ashish, you guys should probably answer this in Slack, because or you should tear down that UI because it's misleading. Sorry, Gaurav.
Yeah, thank you, Pulak. So since we are over time today, so thank you all for joining. Thank you, Abhi, for hosting. We'll meet everyone next week, same time, same place. Thank you all. Bye.
Thanks.